The situation in West Asia continues to be tense and is escalating by the hour. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called for a cabinet meeting to discuss the escalating crisis. Saturday night saw Iranian proxy groups in Syria fire as many as 6 rockets towards Israel. Israeli army then announced that it has carried out artillery strikes in retaliation in areas in Syria from where the rockets were fired. According to Israeli Defense Forces, in the first attack, 3 rockets were fired from Syria, of which 1 crossed the border and landed in an open area near the northern Israeli town of Metzar. Now, according to Jordan's military, fragments of another destroyed missile fell into Jordanian territory near the Syrian border. Hours later, in the second barrage, 2 of the rockets crossed the border into Israel, with 1 being intercepted and the second landing in an open area. There are no reports of casualties. These strikes come amid soaring tensions in the region. Cross-border strikes also took place in Gaza and Lebanon following Israeli police raids in Jerusalem's al-Aqsa mosque earlier this week. Meanwhile, the US has sent an attack submarine as a deterrent against Iran and to maintain the stability of one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The move came a day after the US Fifth Fleet and its partners released a warning advising all ships to proceed with caution following the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, according to a US Navy spokesman. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Minister and Italian ambassador to Israel visited a hospital in Tel Aviv, where foreign nationals injured in a car ramming attack on Friday night were being treated. An Italian tourist was killed and 5 other Italian and British citizens were wounded when a car rammed into a group of tourists in Tel Aviv. The attacker has been identified as an Israeli Arab.
On behalf of the government and the people of Israel, I send our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Alessandro Parini, the Italian citizen who was murdered in yesterday's terror attack in Tel Aviv, and to the government and the people of Italy. Murderous terrorism is the enemy of us all. I also send our wishes for a speedy recovery to the injuries. תודה רבה ושבוע טוב.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has expressed condolences to the family of 2 British Israeli sisters while releasing their images. The 2 sisters were killed in a separate attack on Friday during a shooting incident. One of the sisters was 20 years old, while the other was just 15, while their mother remains in critical condition in hospital. Israeli president on Saturday had a telephonic conversation with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who expressed his concern over the situation in Jerusalem, especially the violence at the al-Aqsa mosque. President Herzog emphasized in response that Israel is firmly committed to preserving the status quo at the holy sites. Meanwhile, protests over controversial judicial reforms continue in Israel. Amid the ongoing clashes, tens of thousands of Israelis joined protests on Saturday against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans to tighten control on the Supreme Court. This was the 14th straight week when the protests were witnessed against the judicial bill. Protesters also stood still and observed a moment of silence for the victims of the attacks a day earlier in Tel Aviv that killed and injured foreign nationals. Now, for more on this, we have with us Lieutenant Colonel Avital Leibovich, who is a director at American Jewish Committee in Jerusalem and a Middle East expert. Thank you for being with us. Now, the Israeli army has announced that it has carried out retaliatory artillery strikes. Take us through the latest on these increasing tensions.
Well, basically, I would say that Israel is under an attack from multi-arenas. Usually we have terror within Israel, within the country itself, namely Palestinian terrorists who choose terroristic means to attack Jews. It could be an explosive device. It could be ramming with a vehicle. But in the past couple of days, we have witnessed a different reality of multi-arena. From Gaza, we have been attacked with rockets. From Lebanon, we have been attacked with rockets as well, 34 rockets within half an hour. And with Syria, as you mentioned, last night we had another rocket attack. And this all comes in a times of holy times, a holiday which many Israelis observe, the holiday of Passover. So many families are at home or vacationing outside. This is a time of rejoicing with the family. So we are in quite, I would say, a tense situation here with a high level of security that has been raised throughout the country. However, Israel is a strong country, and I'm sure we will be able to overcome this current terror wave.
Now, Colonel, Benjamin Netanyahu has called for a cabinet meeting to discuss these escalating tensions and crisis. What are we expecting from this meeting with the Prime Minister?
Well, in this cabinet meeting, usually there are recommendations of the professional security officials. It could be army, it could be police, it could be border police. And usually they detail different scenarios, different kinds of operational plans in order to retaliate and actually prevent further terror attacks. And after this presentation, the Prime Minister will need to reach a decision and see which recommendation is he expecting. I can say that in all of the history, rich history of Israel, with combating terror attacks and different kinds of security challenges, usually the political echelon actually respects and accepts the recommendations of the security apparatus. I do want to say that even though a few hours have passed since the attack from Syria, and it has been relatively quiet in the last 10 hours in Israel, this does not mean in any way that this terror wave is behind us. On the contrary, I do think that we are about to face additional security challenges. For once, in the coming Friday, this is something the Iranians have established. It's a holiday called al-Quds Day or Jerusalem Day, the Iranian Jerusalem Day. And in this day, again, we expect a rise in violent protests, demonstrations, and areas of friction. So we are still in the midst of this very tense security situation, and the cabinet decision, of course, will have some influence on the coming days here.
Right, Lieutenant Colonel, thank you very much for being with us and your valued insights on the latest coming out of Israel.
Thank you.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.